there, welcome over here to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you 5 new sheet pan dinners that are literally dump and go. So you will just dump the ingredients onto the sheet pan, stick it in your oven, and then there you go. You have dinner to be served onto the kitchen table. I hope you enjoy it, and let's go start cooking. We're beginning today with this maple glazed chicken with sweet potatoes and broccoli. So I first diced my 3 sweet potatoes into smaller pieces. I also cut my broccoli into smaller pieces as well. I set those veggies to the side. In this pot, I added 2 tablespoons of butter along with 1/4 cup of maple syrup. This is kind of like the maple syrup glaze we're making right now. So I am going to whisk this all together and let this simmer until the butter melts. Once the butter melts down, I just set this maple glaze to the side. I pulled out my sheet pan and I do have it lined with parchment paper, just for easy cleanup in the end. I added our veggies down, so just the broccoli and the sweet potatoes that we cut up earlier. And then you are going to want to add a little bit of oil to those veggies. I'm just using avocado oil spray, but you could use any type of oil you like. Then I seasoned them with a dash of salt and pepper, and I gave this a stir to coat the veggies in that oil. Then I kind of pushed the veggies to the side of the sheet pan, and into the center of the sheet pan, I added 1 pound of chicken tenderloins, or you could use thin chicken breasts, whatever you prefer. And then I'm going to season those chicken tenderloins on both sides with a dash of salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. Now that we're just about through seasoning our chicken tenderloins on both sides, we're going to be pouring half of that maple glaze that we made up over the top of the chicken tenderloins, and then you're going to kind of spread it over the chicken tenderloins. I'm just using the back of my spoon. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, remove it from the oven, and I did flip the chicken over, and then I poured the remaining glaze over the top of the chicken tenderloins, and then I baked this in the oven for an additional 15 minutes. This meal screams this time of year. That maple flavor is bold, but it is definitely not overpowering at all. Those veggies are so tender, and this is just unbelievably good. You really need to make it. Now we're getting started on these cheddar crusted pork chops. So I have about 1 pound of Brussels sprouts right here. I'm just going to trim the ends off of them and cut them in half. Then I have 1.5 pounds of these gemstone potatoes. They're kind of just like baby potatoes, but they're tricolored. We really like them. I cut those potatoes into bite-sized pieces, and then I added our Brussels sprouts and our potatoes into this large bowl. To go into the bowl with the potatoes and Brussels sprouts, I added 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a dash of salt and pepper. Go ahead and give this a good stir to coat the Brussels sprouts and potatoes in the oil and seasonings. Now we're going to get started on the coating for the outside of the pork chops. In this little bowl, I added 2 eggs with 1/4 cup of milk. I whisked this together super duper well, so the milk and the eggs were well combined. In this second bowl, I'm adding 1.5 cups of regular breadcrumbs with 1.5 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Give this a really good stir. Now for the pork chops, I have about 4 boneless pork chops right here. I did season them on both sides with salt and pepper. You're going to dip them in the egg mixture. Next, coat them in that breadcrumb and cheese mixture. Make sure you coat it super duper well. And then place the pork chops on a sheet pan that you sprayed with nonstick spray. To go around our pork chops, I just added those veggies. This will bake in a preheated oven to 425 degrees for about 16 minutes. After those 16 minutes of baking, you are going to flip the pork chops over. Just try to do it carefully so the breadcrumbs don't fall off. And then you are also going to kind of turn the potatoes and Brussels sprouts around. This will bake for an additional 16 minutes or until your pork chops are cooked through. I really love the coating on the outside of the pork chops. It is crispy and flavorful. And then of course, those veggies are nice and tender. I really do like cooking with pork chops because they are a more budget-friendly meat option. So if you're on a budget, this meal is especially great. Okay, these barbecue chicken nachos are so darn good. So to get them started to the pan on my stove, I added about 7 strips of bacon that I cut into bite-sized pieces. Go ahead and cook that bacon up. I do want to let you know, if you don't want to use regular bacon, you could always use turkey bacon as a substitute. You could leave the bacon out, or if you don't want to cook bacon, you could use pre-cooked crumbled bacon. But once my bacon was cooked through, I just removed it with a slotted spoon to a bowl lined with paper towels. I have about 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken right here. I just grabbed a rotisserie chicken when I was at the grocery store, and I used the chicken from that, but you could cook and shred your chicken however you choose to do so. And then I added 3/4 cup of barbecue sauce to the chicken, and I gave it a really good stir to coat the chicken in the barbecue sauce. Now over to my sheet pan, I'm going to be adding about 1.5 bags of tortilla chips. You just kind of want that sheet pan covered in chips. But I spread those chips out, and then over the top of the chips, you're going to be adding that cooked shredded chicken with the barbecue sauce. Just kind of spread it out to the best of your ability. And then over the top of that, you're going to be adding the bacon. I do also want to mention to you, if you want to add a can of drained and rinsed black beans on top, that would also be really good. And then I am going to be sprinkling some red onion on the top. And then lastly, I'll be adding about 2.5 cups of Mexican style cheese. This will bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 11 to 16 minutes, or until that cheese is nice and melty. I drizzled my plate of nachos with a little bit more barbecue sauce on the very top, and oh man, these nachos are seriously so good. They're like a fun twist on regular nachos, and they really taste like something you'd get at a football game or a baseball game. They're so good. Now we're making the sesame chicken and veggies. I have my cutting board here. We are going to cut up our veggies. So I'm first slicing 3 large carrots. Next, I diced 1 red bell pepper. And lastly, I cut my head of broccoli into smaller pieces. I'll set our veggies to the side. We're going to start on the sauce now. In this little bowl, I added 2 tablespoons of minced garlic and a tablespoon of minced ginger. If you don't have minced ginger, you could add a teaspoon of ground ginger. And then I added 1/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of honey. Give this a really good stir. I placed all of the vegetables in this large bowl. Then I added 1 pound of cubed chicken breast right in there. Next, I added 10 ounces of frozen cauliflower rice, and then you are going to pour in half of the sauce that we just made up and give this a really good stir to coat everything in the sauce. I have my sheet pan here. I added the chicken and veggies to the sheet pan and I spread it out. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 16 minutes. After the 16 minutes of baking, you'll remove it from the oven, and then you're going to pour the remaining sauce over the top of everything. Give it another stir to coat everything in the sauce, and then bake this for an additional 15 to 16 minutes. We topped our bowls with a little bit of sesame seeds, and this is a wonderful meal if you want to meal prep it even, because it's packed full of protein and veggies. You can make it in the beginning of the week, you could place it in containers, and then it is just ready for the microwave. It's just super flavorful and good. This Italian chicken is very simple to make, so we're going to start on the sauce first. In this little bowl, I added 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Next, I tossed in 1/3 cup of balsamic vinegar. And then for the seasonings, I added in 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. I gave this a really good whisk. To make everything extra easy, I'm using a large gallon-size Ziploc bag for this part. I added 2 large chicken breasts right in there. I did slice my chicken breasts in half horizontally to make them thin. I poured half of that sauce right in there, and I let this marinate in my fridge for at least an hour. When the marinating time was almost up, I started on the veggies. So into this large bowl, I added 2 medium-sized zucchinis that I diced into smaller pieces. I also added a pound of green beans that I trimmed and 1.5 cups of cherry tomatoes. I added the remaining sauce in there and I gave this a stir. Moving over to my sheet pan that I have lined with parchment paper, I added those veggies right in there and I spread those veggies out. I am going to be placing our marinated chicken right into the center of the sheet pan. Then this is going to bake in a preheated oven to 425 degrees and it will bake for about 25 to 30 minutes or until the chicken is cooked through. This is another one of those meals. If you wanted to, you could easily meal prep this one. It's high in protein and veggies, which is great. And then this one also lasts well in the refrigerator and then it heats up nicely in the microwave. So I did want to let you know about that, but this meal is really good. I would really love to have you here, so if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe down below the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.